For centuries, the graveyard at Tynemouth Priory has been haunted. And to this day, people park in a seafront car park on an evening, scouring it on the hill opposite for the phantoms that have been clearly seen. In 1978, a number of photographs were taken showing long white figures ambling between the headstones. But if you look at the wall of Tynemouth's Holy Saviour's Church, you'll see the carved initials MM and a heart. These types of markings can be seen around the world as a symbol of young love, but these particular ones deserve to be looked for, as they're the basis of a supposed curse. MM was Mary Marshall, better known as Polly to her friends. She lived with her dad, Robert, in a simple house on Cross Street in Tynemouth. And in 1894, the South Staffordshire Regiment was sent up north to be stationed at Tynemouth Barracks. They were getting ready for military action abroad and needed to be brought up to standard. One of these soldiers was a private called Sam Emery, aged only 20, who spotted young Polly and fell very much in love. Anybody living in the northeast knows of a walk called the Broadway, or the Boulevard. It's a beautiful walk from Whitley Bay to Tynemouth, or vice versa. And this walk leads directly to Holy Saviour's Church. And during the 18 and 1900s, this was the site for an awful lot of billing and cooing. The churchyard found many lovers flirting, kissing, and late at night, sex between the tombstones was not unknown. But the most important thing, though, was to mark your union into the wall surrounding the churchyard. One Tynemouth clergyman wrote in 1826, "Once you have proclaimed your love by carving the wall of Holy Saviour's Church, to betray that commitment would curse you to hell, and the demons shall pursue you and your family for all time." Well, Polly and Sam carved their love into that wall. It's faded now, but you can still clearly see it. It was the first time Polly had been in love, first time she'd made love. And the commitment that she had promised really meant something to her. However, just when the romance was going so well, Sam's regiment was transferred to Strenshaw, near York. Nowadays, with modern transport, it's a workable distance. Yet back then, it might as well have been Australia. Emery was still in love, so continued communicating by letter. But after a few months, he began to feel that her demeanour towards him was changing. Then out of the blue, she received a letter telling her to watch her back, as he may just arrive in Tynemouth when she least expected it. He'd heard a rumour from another soldier who had family in Cullercoats nearby that Polly had another suitor that she seems to have really taken to. This wasn't true. Polly answered that she would be happy to see him whenever he could get up there. However, the 100 miles between them began to drive Emery crazy. He was wallowing in an insane jealousy, and the more he thought about it, the more manic he became. Finally, in July 1894, Emery deserted and headed up to the north. He met with Polly and spent an afternoon with her, burning his uniform in the garden, and he was now firmly back in civilian clothes again. What his girlfriend didn't know was that he'd visited a local ironmonger and he'd bought a large clasp knife and had asked the owner, Thomas Moore of Tynemouth, to sharpen it. His crazed jealousy was about to explode in the most vicious of ways. They were seen walking the Broadway arm in arm, laughing and joking, until they neared the churchyard of Holy Saviour's, when Emery noticed a slight bruise on her neck, and an argument began. The vicar, Reverend Charles Nichols, was on his bike returning from a visit, and he saw what he thought was a couple of ruffians play fighting in the churchyard. Yet on getting closer, he saw that a larger man was assaulting someone, that they had pulled down to the ground. The vicar screamed out for others to help on a busy late afternoon. He threw his bike to the ground and ran towards the victim. As the man ran off, Polly had struggled to her feet. She was covered in blood. Her neck had a huge gaping wound that spurted each time the heart beat. She couldn't speak. She merely gurgled, and wide-eyed she staggered towards the reverend, her hands badly cut from trying to defend herself as she fell into the clergyman's arms. He dragged her into the church and lay her down on the couch, where she bled to death in a matter of minutes. Two men chased Emery, who on a couple of occasions turned to threaten them with a bloody knife. Thomas Warren said he looked like a crazed animal, staring at us like he wanted us dead too. The other man, James Gibson, said, I chased him until he reached the sidings near Tynemouth station, and then he gave me the slip. Later that night, when Polly's murder was on everyone's lips, Emery just ambled into their local bar, the Crescent, and asked for some paper. He jotted something down, then slid it into an envelope. He downed a glass of stout and then asked the landlady to only read it once he was long gone. This was the only confession he would ever pen. He was walking towards Tynemouth's prison, known at the time as their House of Correction, when two police officers pushed him to the ground, removing a super-sharpened clasp knife covered with blood from his belt. Pretty soon he was up in court to face his crime, and the confession guaranteed the result, and he was found guilty of murdering Mary Marshall, his beloved Polly. What was most ironic was that Polly had remained completely loyal to her man, and Emery, riddled with guilt, began writing to her father begging for his forgiveness. Robert Marshall, her broken father, replied to him, "You carved your promise to my girl in holy saviours, and you broke it. You took her life, and you have destroyed mine. The curse will drive you to hell, where you deserve." On the 11th of November 1894, Samuel Emery was led by his executioner, James Billington, to the gallows. Billington said he was ready to die. He seemed calm and unafraid. His only hope was to be reunited with a lass he'd dispatched, though I doubt that she would wish that, as she enjoys the glorious Almighty. The Holy Saviour's Church was home to a glowing white figure for almost 3 months following his hanging. The locals believed it to be Polly, still in shock at what the man she truly loved had done to her. In 1972, research was carried out to find out whether the Holy Saviour's curse had affected anyone else. Over 30 locals came forward to say that they were no longer with partners, despite carving their names into the wall. They had entire catalogues of misery that they'd experienced, including stillbirth, cot death, cancer, leukemia, early death, divorce, and no end of horrific accidents. One had fallen from the cliff to his death, another decapitated during a motoring accident. To betray someone who loves you is said to incite karma to work against you. This is nature's curse upon you. In 1962, Ernie Thompson cheated on his wife in Bedlington with a woman called Sue Stevens from Whitley Bay. During the affair, he suffered an accident with a bandsaw that snapped